James showed up for us, unlike for the Kings.
Oh, sick burn.
So I told James I got a good laugh out of that when Sean's video popped up on my phone, and I also thought it was cool that he didn't call out anyone else. He just called out James, which is like, oh, that's
a sign.
That's
of
my
respect.
quarterback. That's my partner.
Yeah, that's a sign of respect.
That's how I saw it. Like he missed James. He was ready to answer James' questions, and James wasn't even there. So Sean got an exclusive.
Sean did get an exclusive, which means that a lot of people weren't there. I don't know where everyone else was. I just know that last week was tough. I mean, the back-to-backs in the middle of the week, the adding to the radio show in the morning after the backto-backs.
Well, your thing is always, it's not just that, it's that you have to drive an hour to get to practice.
Yeah, it's an hour. So on a day where I can take a day where I don't drive, that's a good thing. Plus, I did write yesterday. I wrote the Keon Ellis story. So it's not like it wasn't working. But yeah, I was telling you guys, yeah, I found it humorous. I showed my wife and my son, and my son popped off with, I thought was hilarious. He said, yeah, just, what did I tell you? It was like, he was waiting for, that I'll show up when the screen does. That's what my son said.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, so
that's pretty funny.
So my son said, "Tell Mike that I'll show up when the screen does," and I thought that was hilarious. So I text Mike. Mike also found it hilarious. So we went back and forth. Yeah, so
that's good stuff.
Tough luck.
I like that. I know you had a good relationship with Dave Yeager, and I think you also said you had a good relationship with Luke. Is the the relationship or the dialogue or the communication, is it the same with Mike, or is it a little better, a little different? Like, how's that experience been?
Well, look, I think there's sometimes there's a misunderstanding about what our relationship should be with like a head coach. Like, if someone does something silly or stupid or like needs to be called out for something, I'm always here for that. I don't fear that, but you need a working relationship with a head coach. And I was lucky enough, my first head coach in the league was Paul Westfall, the late great Paul Westfall. And Paul took an instant liking to me, and we just had this really cool relationship. We would meet for lunch, and he would just tell me incredible stories that you just would never have believed happened in real life, because he was with the Boston Celtics at the tail end of their great years and early 70s. He was a rookie of the year guy. He made the Hall of Fame, but he also coached in a different era. And so it really is your job to figure out what makes a coach tick, so you can get the best information possible. You need them to feel comfortable with you. You need to have them understand that you know the game, that you've been around the block, that you've seen crazy things, that sort of the battle wounds and stuff that you have as a writer. Yeah. And so Paul, great relationship. Keith Smart was here and there. It wasn't always great. George Karl wasn't good at all. But Mike Malone, absolutely spectacular. Every time I see him, I still have his phone number, still can text him congratulations on your championship and stuff like that. But just a good dude. And then, of course, me and Dave were close. Even Luke. Me and Dave are close in age, and we also are. His two daughters are very close in age to my two boys. And so life experience is same thing. Luke, not that much younger than me. And so we all had it's a good relation. You need a good relationship.
Did you skip George or did I miss it? Did you talk
I said
about
George. No, George, we had a horrible.
Your loving relationship with George Karl.
Yeah, I mean,
it was terrible.
He is the one coach that waited until cameras were rolling to call me an a-hole for cameras. And I found it humorous, and but that was him. It was just kind of what was left. The only one I missed, Alvin Gentry is spectacular. Alvin is just
the king of cool.
He is the king of cool. He's a gem of a human being. Yeah. And then Ty Corbin's a good man too. He just stepped into a bad situation. And so to be fair and to be sort of impartial, you have to take a step back all the time, because, I remember, again, I think I've told you the story, but I was sitting with Paul Westfall, Jerry Sloan. They were playing the Utah Jazz late in the season. It was Jerry Sloan's last year in Utah. and they just traded Darren Williams, who had become like a horrible problem. And I looked over, I'm like, man, you got to feel bad for Jerry Sloan. Like, look at what's left of his team. And, here he is towards the end of his career. He goes, James, have you looked at my roster? I'm like, oh yeah, my bad, dude. My bad. Lowest payroll in the NBA. You traded for guys just to get to the salary floor. Like, it was bad. I think 9 guys weren't in the league a year later from my first team that I covered. So yeah, rough. Yeah, but it's our job to like sort of have these relationships. So you don't tell their side of the story, but you're able to at least give them a voice here and there, for things that are happening that we see one way, but there might be some reason it's a different way.
So that real quick, the interesting thing that goes on with like what I feel would go on with like a beat reporter like yourself and Mike Brown and even some of the players is, to a certain degree, you guys are coworkers. You guys literally see each other every day. You speak to each other every day. It's almost like us and Kim or something like that. Like, you guys are coworkers because you see each other every day. And I think that's what came off to me seeing a video like that.
Yeah.
Is like, you guys
I didn't take offense.
No, it was great. It was funny. It was, like I said, a sign of respect, but it was just also reminding me, like, you're in his life every day. He's in your life every single day. And you guys obviously don't work in the same place, but you guys are almost coworkers.
I would say even as much as coworkers, I've always described it almost like when you get a new boss, because your job when you get a new boss is to like take a step back and to figure them out as quickly as possible. Are they someone who is all about like punching in exactly on time? Are they someone who calls on the weekends? Are they, you have to know the intricacies of the person you're dealing with and what makes them tick and where the soft points are and where, you can go at them. And like, it's a very weird symbiotic relationship, the media and a team, coach, players, whatever it is, but the head coach in particular. And like, look, I appreciate Mike. This is going to be, once the Kings rattle off 3 more wins here in a row, it'll be the second time in my 14 years covering the team that they've gone 500. It'll also be the 10th time. Check this out. The 10th time since the Kings moved to Sacramento in 1985 that they will have posted a 500 record. The previous 8 times were all Rick Adelman. No one else in Sacramento history has ever had a 500 record or better. And Mike is sitting right here. So
that's crazy.
There needs to be a certain amount of reverence and respect for what he's been able to do. But at the same time, like, we got to figure some things out. I've got to ask him ridiculous questions about why his players aren't coming to the podium or
That wasn't a ridiculous question.
No, it was a question.
Well, no, but it's the tough questions.
Yeah.
And in order to ask that question, you do have to have a relationship like what we have with it. You guys saw where we can like have an honest discussion between each other with cameras rolling,
right?
Where it doesn't feel like I'm just getting some canned weird answer.
And to be fair, sorry, Dan, but to be fair, like,
it's fine. I'm good over here.
Come on, man. Come on. I joke about like, oh, I'm gonna go in there and I'm asked da. I probably couldn't ask that to Mike, and he probably look at me like, bro, who are you asking this type of question? Because I ain't asked no question all year. You know what I mean? So, there's a certain I don't want to say cachet, but there's some leeway maybe that you get with being there every day and being able to ask the tough questions when they need to be asked.
Oh no, there's a certain amount of respect that comes with the job. Like, if you do the job the right way, if you're honest and you're fair, I think it's the best way. I remember early in Dave Yeager's career, he asked media relations to pull me aside after practice and said, hey, you wrote that Aaron Aflalo was a sieve on defense. And I said, well, that's what he said yesterday at practice. Like, he didn't say sieve. He just said, I have been horrible defensively all year. And I used the term sieve as opposed to horrible defensively. And he goes, oh, he said that? It's like, yeah, he said it. He's like, okay. He's like, we're good. I just want to make sure that I'm like, I got my guys back. Like, I can't have you writing he's a sieve unless it's something that he's acknowledged, like that. Let's be fair here. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, we're cool. Yeah. So You know, you have to have these relationships. That's, I think, at the end of the day.
You said something a second ago. The Kings go 3-0 over this next stretch. Do you think that that's happening?
I think it has to. Like, if you're going to avoid the play-in, you got 8 games to prove that that's who you are, and you need to go 8-0, 7-1, 6-2, right here, or just put up or shut up right here. Like, there is no more letdown games, and the 3 letdown games are right here in front of you. You've got straight up, you got a horrible Memphis team that is so injured.
Though. They're tough.
They're tough, but they're not talented.
I understand.
And they have some NBA players, but they're not there. And then you go from here right to Toronto, and again, not a great team. And you should be able to, especially, I mean, they're missing players, like RJ Barrett's out too now. Just sending love to his family. Their tragedy up there, it's horrible.
Oh yeah,
absolutely horrible.
Awful.
But then you come back the next night and you play the Washington Wizards. If you are a serious ball club, 1, 2, 3, move on to the next game. Move on to Orlando. You take care of business in these 3 games. You build some sort of, buffer a little bit, and because that final 8 games is just brutal. So
you've got to deal. Like, all I keep thinking about is getting back home in those 2 games against the Mavericks, while hoping that New Orleans can just sweep Phoenix, do us a solid there, and then you really, if we're being like hopeful, we're hoping for a split with Dallas, but getting to those 2 Dallas games is the 3 that you just mentioned. You got Orlando, which is a good team and always a tough matchup for Sacramento. You got Philadelphia, who's just kind of like
meh.
They're just trying to keep their head above water. They're far from a bad basketball team, and we know Tobias Harris clearly is capable of going for 37 on any given night. But it's these next 3 that's got everyone. I don't like this. And I think Memphis is tough. I think Toronto is tough. And Washington's bad. Like, there's no way to sugarcoat that. Do you think Sacramento struggles with physical basketball teams? Obviously, that's what we saw, Saturday, and we could talk more about that game as this conversation rolls along. But New York's obviously a very physical basketball team. That's Thibs' MO. They struggle with Houston, they struggle with New Orleans, and like talent or not, like Memphis is a physical basketball team tonight. Do you think they struggle with physical teams?
I think they struggle with long, athletic, physical teams. Like, even the Knicks, that was just a game in the trenches. Like, and they didn't struggle. I mean, they didn't shoot the ball well, for sure. But that wasn't a struggle. That was like 90s basketball. That was just dirty and filthy. And, you got to be ready for that, because that's really what the playoffs look like. That right there. And I thought the Knicks came in there. The Knicks are a very good team. They've had injuries, but they fought through injuries. And then you have one guy who just goes absolutely bonkers. And there was nothing the Kings could have done to stop Jalen Brunson.
Mm-hmm.
Like, some of the shots he took, it was like prime Dame.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are we doing? He's shooting from 35 feet and nothing but net. I mean, he wasn't even touching the rim. And so, like, every once in a while that's going to happen. And it doesn't feel like the Terry Rozier game where you let a team hang around, and the guy got hot. Like, he ended up with 44. He scored 9 in the 4th quarter, Brunson. But it was like 12 points, 13 points. And, like, he was just awesome. And sometimes you're going to lose those to somebody like that. But look at how they shut down everybody else. Like, OG Anunoby was a complete non-factor. Like, every single player, you look around, you're like, the Kings did a great job defensively, except for they couldn't figure out a way to stop Brunson from hitting haymakers. And sometimes, hey, look, that's the NBA. That's it. You know how many teams have thought the same thing? You know how well we did against Sabonis and against Harrison Barnes and against Malik Monk, and De'Aaron Fox just busted us for 45 and we lost, or 44. So, I mean, it's tough, because you want to be hard on the Kings for losing that game, but that was just bare knuckle, and somebody else, one team came out on top and the other one didn't. And there was no shame in losing that game at all, especially after a week that you had where you took the Bucks to the woodshed and then you smacked around the Lakers like on a back-to-back. I mean, so I hate the Houston games and stuff like that, but the physicality of the Knicks game, like, look, I thought the Kings matched it. I thought they did. I just thought they made some mistakes on the stretch, and a dude kept raining from all over the place.
Yeah, and it's like, to me, it was just a basketball game, right? It was just a basketball game, and the Knicks came out on top in that game.
I kind of miss those, don't you? Just straight up, it's a basketball game. Like, hey, what's this?
Both teams are out there playing hard. No Rasheed Wallace, but both teams were playing hard. And like I told you guys earlier, Jalen made a couple more shots than Fox did. He actually made a lot more shots. I was going back over to the stats, and I didn't even really realize it when during the game. He made 17 field goals. Like, it wasn't like a parade to the line where, you know, he made 7 field goals and, you know, went to the line 18 times. He was 17 of 28. I mean, this guy was cooking. And, you know, like you said, there's been a number of different times when Fox has done that to other teams and other opponents. Just wasn't necessarily his night on Saturday. They got the win that time. You keep it moving. But I think, like you pointed out, James, and you did as well, the big key is the Kings were game for the fight. They were game. They was ready. Oh, this how we playing tonight? It's cool. All right, we got you. And they were ready to go. They didn't get punked off the floor.
Yeah, I mean, again, at some point you got to figure out ways to win those games.
Yep.
But there was a player that was better than your players on the floor. And, you know, like we always talk about who's the best player on the floor. Like, I'd love to tell you it was De'Aaron Fox, but it wasn't.
Jalen's having a hell of a season.
Yeah, he is.
Eastern Conference Player of the Week this week, but that's not indicative of the entire season he's having. Maybe a little under-discussed. Like, I really do think Jalen's a little under-discussed. Like, he's having a run right now.
That's fair to say.
This season with New York. Like, he's really
He's an all-star.
Yeah, for as much as you want to give, like, Anthony Edwards his props for this year, like, Jalen Brunson's been better. Straight up. He's been better. And while his players have gone down with injury, he's sitting there just backpacking the team the whole time. Like, not only did they lose Julius Randle, like, months ago, but on top of that, they traded R.J. Barrett and Emmanuel Quickly, their 2 offensive players, to play alongside him, and brought in OG. Then OG gets hurt, and you're just fighting through the season with, like, basically a one-man band. And, like, Dante DiVincenzo's been really good.
Yeah.
But 14, 15 points a game really good, not 25 points a game really good. So it's tough. He's been phenomenal.
You guys think he makes the All-NBA?
He's thinking the same exact thing.
And I don't even
thinking the same exact
he's had essentially the same season as De'Aaron. You know what I'm saying? So if we think that De'Aaron Fox is an All-NBA player, I mean, it almost was like you got to think Brunson is too.
Oh, yeah. Fox is up against it. Like, this is going to be a really, really tough battle to get All-NBA, especially if you're not a top, 3, 4, 5 team. Like, if you're a play-in team or you're right there on the bubble, like, you're not getting 2. And for as much as, like, we could point to this game and say, look what Brunson did to Fox. We'll get the rematch in, like, a week and a half and see if Fox can answer it at MSG. But I kind of feel like you got to, if you're going to give Brunson a nod because of his performance against a team like the Kings and against a guy like De'Aaron Fox, then I would like the same respect with regards to Anthony Davis and Domantas Sabonis when it comes to All-NBA. Because one of those guys has just Hulk smashed the other guy, just grabbed him by the ankles and, bounce him off the hardwood all night long.
Sticking with the New York game, you have any thoughts on Mike going away from Keegan down the stretch? Like, he played in the 4th, but we're talking like the final... Should have taken better notes. 4 minutes, 5 minutes. He brought Malik in and stuck with Keon, and obviously Delmas, Harris, and De'Aaron were the rest of the group that was out there.
Yeah, I thought you needed Keon for the defensive side. And if you look at the stats, that is the one quarter where they did limit Brunson a little bit as far as, like, shooting. I think, was he 3 for 7 in the 4th? So I thought Keon did a quality job. And then it really came down to, like, pretty simple. Harrison Barnes kept you going with some big shots, and Keegan, he hit a big shot in the 4th, but he also passed up like 3 or 4 shots that really, really were infuriating. And so, like, you in that moment, if you're going to be out there in crunch time, I need no hesitation. I don't want like wide open in the corner. They fed him, and the first thing he did was put the ball on the floor. Like, no, 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 shoot the ball. That's the offense. If I have to hear Mike Brown say spray one more time, like, which I know tonight, I'm probably gonna. I need one of those clickers they have at Costco. Like click, click, click. Everyone who comes in the door. I need one of those so I can sit there and count how many times he says it. It's wild, but that's what he's talking about. Like, you got the spray 3 right to Keegan, and he didn't pull the trigger. And that's something like, look, you're not going to shoot it. I'm not going to keep you out there. So I'm okay with that.
If he doesn't have he missed some good looks to start the game, and it feels like he doesn't have I'm going to shoot myself out of this.
Yeah.
That's just something he doesn't have. And it's almost, Mike might be the first coach to tell you, hey, have this mentality, have this, you missed the first one, make the second one. You missed the second one, make the third one, make the fourth one, just take the fifth one and the sixth one and the seventh one. And it seems that's where Mike and Keegan start to cuss each other out a little bit.
It's frustrating because that's the offense. That's who they want you to be. Like, they aren't freaking players out. Like, no one is getting called out for taking a shot at all. So people say, "Oh, Mike is just hammered Kevin Huerter's confidence." No, he's sending him out there every day, and hoping that his shooting guard wakes up. Like, that's what he's doing. He's giving him the confidence. He's sticking with him as long as he can. And it's the same thing with Keegan. It's like at some point, it has to come from within. It's just like, again, Mike says it about, like, he says, well, my kids, he brings up his kids, but, at some point, you just can't keep, like, fighting their battles for them. It's got to be them. It's got to be them that demands that they're out on the court. And, like, look at Keon Ellis. He demands to be on the court, not by saying a word, by playing his way onto the court and staying on the court because of his play.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Like, that's what we're talking about. Like, go out there and show that that's who you are going to be as a player. And so until Keegan decides to do that, like, he's going to have moments where he doesn't play in the closing with the closing lineup.
Oh, look, I know some people we've talked about allowing him grow and allowing him to grow and everything. Man, we need it now.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I think the situation for growth would be if you played in Detroit and all this other stuff. Yeah, grow. I need you to be grown right now, because if you're in a shooting shop or you're being passive or whatever, that is going to greatly affect whether this team can win games, which means it'll greatly affect whether or not they make the playoffs. So, I think, man, I love Keegan. It's no beef, but we ain't got time for all that growth stuff. Like, we need production.
Yeah, I mean, you gave him 60 games to grow. Now we're in the stretch run, and you're going to face a team like the Knicks on a Saturday night where it's just, again, it's bare knuckle.
Yeah.
Like, you got to go out there and you got to fight. And if you're not going to, all right, let's give Keon a shot. Let's give Davion more minutes. Chris Duarte is begging for minutes.
Yeah.
He's coming in. He's not afraid to shoot. So
not
at all.
He gonna get him up.
Yeah, he's definitely not. There's levels to this, though.
No,
there's levels to not being afraid to shoot.
I agree.
I got you. Keon's obviously playing really well. Seeing him at the end of games was great. Another near 30-minute outing for Keon. Of course, that came at the expense of Kevin Huerter, who just continues to struggle on the offensive end. He couldn't get anything going at all yesterday. And his defense, as the game played out, no one could. But it really wasn't there for Kevin Huerter. We'll talk more about Keon Ellis, about Kevin Huerter, about where this team is. We'll talk more about Mike Brown in the game against the Memphis Grizzlies tonight and this little stretch here as they get ready to leave the Golden One Center. We've got all that coming up with our insider, our man James Ham. The Kings and the Grizzlies tonight. We're going to get you ready for it. It's Steelum with KC, brought to you by Sky River Casino here on Sacramento's sports leader, ESPN 1320. You guys are the greatest, man. You guys are the greatest. This might be the funniest shit I've ever seen.
Did I almost miss this coming to break right now?
No, this might be the funniest shit I've ever seen. They had this dude on for like 30 minutes. Wow. Wow.
Oh, wow. All right.
Now
look, we see the numbers up. Play the hits.
Now-
Play the hits. Keep them on.
Now I need everyone to simultaneously log out. Just log out at the same exact time.
Wow.
You guys are the best. We had the chatty house open up another window and go visit our friends down the street because they had a mean hella sun on. And for about 45 minutes straight, they were placing coffee orders.
I just why are you having him on?
It's a great question.
To talk about his jumper?
Because you just don't know your audience, I guess.
What? Ryan hasn't played in a year and a half.
Did you see? My man said, I think it was Zebo that said Mitch has had more coherent
I saw
calls
that
than
one.
this.
I would just say straight up, the conversation of Fox versus Morant. Fox has a very good understanding of gun safety. It's the end of the discussion. Goodbye. It's over.
Sorry, Ja. I love you. Get well soon.
One of them plays basketball. The other one does not. I mean, seriously.
All right.
I really hate that the Rock Kings thing was so perfect. Damn.
So good.
That was perfect.
So good and still upsetting to
What
this
was
day.
the last line when the Lakers come back to beat your ass?
No, it
What'd he
was
say?
leaving in Sacramento, I can't stay, but I'll be sure to come back when the Lakers beat the Kings in May. And then just immediately the crowd was boo! And the Rock goes, yeah, but they're my fans. They understand me. Then they were laughing. The fuck we were! No, that was almost your ass.
What was louder? Game 1 last year or Arco that night?
Oh, it was pretty fun. It was
close.
loud.
It was close.
Oh, that was loud.
And he thought it was jokes.
I told you.
Sir.
No,
Better hurry up and get in that limo and get the hell out of here.
I was in Levi Stadium when Seth cashed in Money in the Bank and Arco was louder. They were furious.
I never heard him say oh, they understood.
Oh, he said it on his DVD because this is always such a part of the Rock's story.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, but a minute later they were laughing. No, we fucking weren't. No one was laughing.
Still not, actually.
No. If that glass hadn't hit, you might have gotten your ass whooped that night. Yeah, that was not funny. That was not funny.
The one thing people in Sacramento do not play with is the Kings and the Lakers. They don't play with it. There's nothing funny about it, ever.
No, I mean, Jason Jones was never embraced because he's a Laker fan.
Mm-hmm.
Jason he did a good job.
He did a great job. Still does.
Yeah.
But there's always that wart on his resume here in Sacramento that he's a Laker fan.
Yeah.
Those poor guys got shredded over there.
Hey, at least they had people in their chat.
Well, they did. That's why I said everybody close the window. Close the window. Yo, you were killing me over there. Oh my God.
Oh,
you guys
bro.
are so funny.
Oh, bro.
Yeah, you guys are Hall of Famers for this. Hall of Famers. I saw that. That's where I almost saw. That's where I had to close the screen because I could see Drapes reading, just confused as shit.
Alexander Madison signed with the Raiders. Wild.
Man. And then Kim came in here.
Yeah.
Kim came in here with this after throwing people's lunch away.
Kim the culprit.
Josh Dobbs, San Francisco 49er.
Wait, what?
Okay.
Yeah.
Massive upgrade over Sam Darnold.
One year.
Oh, I'm in.
I don't hate
was
that.
cooking last year.
No,
Yeah, he
I'm
won
in.
games.
Yeah.
I don't hate that.
You go out there, he can be a winner. He doesn't need to do all what he had to do there.
Kyle said, all right, I've conquered the coaches. Now I'm going after the quarterbacks. Conquered the coaches. Let's go get these quarterbacks.
Changing the league one man at a time. Look at the Heat.
Chase Young signed with 1-year deal with the Saints.
That's the game tonight.
And this is a Monday game. They could make an
guess.
adjustment. I don't think there's any good games on the night, though.
I don't think there is. Yeah.
Oh, they could have do Detroit and Boston. Cleveland and Indiana.
I wouldn't even put Detroit and Boston on there.
Yeah, they should have went to Cleveland and Indiana.
Cleveland.
Hey,
this is for you.
Man, Detroit is so bad. We didn't even get to see Evan Fournier kick the ball into the stands.
Oh, yeah.
He got $25,000 fine. We didn't even see it because nobody cares about Detroit.
He could have broke something.
Yeah, he kicked the hell out of that.
Really?
Ball.
He could have knocked something down out of the rafters the way he kicked that ball.
I hope he yelled, Fournier, Google that, as he kicked it.
What's the story behind that one?
Google it.
Yeah, go ahead and Google Fournier. We'll wait.
Oh, I don't know if I want.
We're back here with the dopest community in all of sports media, the Chatty House.
Yahoos.
Yeah.
Yahoos, man. Yahoos.
Is that what they called them?
We Yahoos.
Did we get called Yahoos?
Yeah, Yahoos.
What
kind of bonanza ass insult is that?
Shut your ass up and go get some more coffee.
You
do that.
That's comedy. Who said Yahoos?
Coffee Boy. I said it was a bonanza ass insult, though.
Oh, Coffee Boy called us Yahoo.
We Yahoo.
That's funny.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Hey, don't let that little hoe show up here. Oh, that little hoe show up here.
Oh, man. This dude, man. He a character. He a character, man. Y'all know he had
that boy ran over there and thought he was doing something. Imagine talking to that dude for 20 minutes. That's wild. Oh my God.
Hey, look. If our buddy says, "Hey man, I'm over here at Tiger, we having lunch. I got a meeting with me. Pull up, man. You pulling up?"
No.
No, you're gonna ask them if they have coffee there?
No.
Just
because I'd be
coffee.
confrontational. Like I don't like I still to this day
get confrontational.
I'll still to this day talk to Draymond Green.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any desire to, but I would sit down and talk to him. I have no desire to talk to this human being. He's trash. He's not a good person.
No.
Like I have no desire to talk to him.
I talk to him.
Oh, I have no desire.
We can get confrontational.
But he wouldn't talk though.
But that would put my man in a tough spot. Like I'm not going to do that. Now, if I bump into him, it's different.
He called us over here. You know what it could have been.
Well, that's true.
And like I said, I ain't got to put
pulling
hands
up with
on
James
him,
Hand.
but I tell him what it is. I tell him how I feel. It is what it is, bro.
You know, I'll fight.
Well, we do know that.
I don't care.
We do know that. This is from the guy who almost picked a fight with Jacques Vaughn one day. They're gonna be scared of some dude who goes and gets coffee for Steve Kerr.
I ain't afraid of nobody that shoots like that.
Oh man,
Jesus!
You also can't play the I'll defend all my takes and I'll like take it all in the forefront when Charlie sent you the text or whatever.
We already know you fake. We already know you. We didn't sniff you out a long time ago. Yeah, we already know the time.
Years and years. Radio Yahoos. That's tremendous. That is absolutely tremendous. Hammers, we look at I know Kings fans are nervous about tonight. Kings fans are nervous about the next few games. Kings players might even be nervous because they've acknowledged losing games like to a depleted Memphis team, losing games to, Toronto. And God, you just hope it doesn't happen with Washington, with all due respect to those brothers there. But they're just so bad. Overall, though, it feels like the Kings are playing really good basketball right now.
Yeah, you take away the Houston game, and they were riding a 2-game win streak coming into that game.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had another 2-game win streak, which they lost to the Knicks in a hard-fought game.
And that's the thing, like the Houston,
Mhm.
because that's the only bad one, I think, over this stretch that we're referencing. Those happen. Like I think it's okay. We hate it. We hate it in the moment. We hated the way Monday went, but looking back, like in its totality, we're talking like they played one bad game over the last 6 or 7 or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Those games happen to every team in the league. It's frustrating with the Kings because it feels like, man, this happens a lot to teams like Houston. Like losing to Houston or Chicago isn't like losing to New York the other night. But overall, like I think the Kings are playing really well.
Yeah, I mean, you got a win against Denver, San Antonio, and the Clippers, right? Back to back to back. And then you lose to the Heat and the Nuggets. You beat the Timberwolves. You lose to the Bulls. You beat the Lakers and Spurs. You lose to the Rockets. You beat the Bucks and the Lakers. You lose to New York. So what are you over that stretch? Like 8-4. You're like, you'll take that.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good stretch. Like if you finish the season with, I don't know,
whatever that
10-6
is.
or somehow you find a way to go 12-4 and get to 50 wins. Like that's one of the good things that are built in right now. Like the Kings have a goal. Like you can see 50 wins like they did last year, but now 50 is going to matter. This year 50 will almost guarantee you a spot in the playoffs, not in the play-in.
Mm-hmm.
So you got your goal and you got 8 games right here that are going to be, they're just sitting there and you could win each of these 8. There's going to be some tough games there, but again, a 6-2, 7-1 stretch here. We can say that, but they have to go do it.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't show up each and every night, then we're going to be sitting here like, basically carving out their tombstone for what this looks like. Because again, this is your opportunity. These 8 games is your opportunity to avoid the play-in.
Mm-hmm.
This is where you build the cachet. And then the last 8 games of the season where you got two gimmies total out of 8, that's going to be tough. So how do you get to the 10 win mark so you can match last year's win total? You win these 8 and you win 2 more, or you win 6 of these and then you got to pick up 4 on the back end. However it is, like at least maintain. And then again, I think that they're changing into the team that we're going to see in the playoffs. If they can make the playoffs, the team that we've seen over the last couple of games is the team that we hope to see at the beginning of the year. This is much better basketball. Win, lose, much better basketball overall. They're fighting, they're playing defense. They're not great defensively because that's not who they are, but adding a guy like Keon Ellis to the lineup, adding, to the rotation, playing shorthanded without, any of your scoring power forwards and Sasha and Trey is tough.
Mm-hmm.
Like you got to find a way here to kind of gut through this. You can't even go small ball because you don't have Trey. So it really, like, this is an interesting moment in time for the Kings, but there is no more gimmies. There's no more mistakes, no more slip. You got to go into each game and stay 100% focused. And again, if you play the way you did against the Knicks, you're going to beat almost every single one of these teams.
And forgive me if we talked about this already, but it just really feels like this stretch, staying out of the play-in, getting to the playoffs, will be the hardest thing that they've had to go through in 2 years, in this 2 years of this group. And if they can get past this, if they can overcome everything, end up being a 6th seed, stay out of the play-in and accomplish that, feels like so much weight will be off I think they'll be one of the more dangerous teams going into the playoffs because they feel like, man, we got together and we were able to get through that. We're loose and free. Let's go have a good time. Let's go play basketball. We could do almost anything. And I just think if they can find a way to get through this is tough. This is tough right now. To me, it was tougher than breaking the drought because they, for lack of a better term, they did that relatively early. It was mid-season where it's like, oh, this team's going. Like they're good. Like they're gonna make it happen. It's probably tougher than that playoff series, even though they lost, because they look at that and they feel like, we messed up some things. We were up 2-0. Fox broke his finger, all this other stuff. It was tough, but we had them. This one is tough. It's like, man, we're fighting off Luka and Kyrie. We're fighting off Devin Booker and Kevin Durant, and LeBron's lurking and Steph is lurking. And we fight all these guys off and accomplish that. I think this would be maybe the most impressive thing they've done in the 2 years together.
I would agree, and I'd also point out you're the one team that no one is paying any attention to. Like you want to say all the time, oh, people are game planning for like, yeah, on a night in, night in basis, you're getting a little bit more. You're not playing the Bucks without Giannis, right? But you don't think all eyes right now are on teams like the Clippers, whether they can hold on, which they're only 3 games up in the loss column right now. With 16 games left, that's nothing. All the eyes are on Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. Like, can they avoid the play-in? They're on Kyrie and Luka, who end up getting a big win in Denver, against Denver yesterday. Like, no one is really paying attention to the Kings, and that's where right now you got to stack them. If you can stack up the wins, then people are going to look and go, oh, well, we're done there. We're not going to catch those guys. And I think the Lakers and Warriors already should be feeling that, but you need the Suns and the Mavs and even the Pelicans to also feel that you're legitimate and this is who you are. And this is your chance to like build the cachet of legitimacy right now.
Tell me about Keon and what you wrote about yesterday. I thought that was a great, this is one of my favorite pieces that you did this year. But it seems Keon has really, like, he has a place on this team moving forward this year. I don't think that's a question at all anymore.
No, I at this point, I'd kind of be surprised if Keon Ellis is a starting shooting guard next year for this team. Like the way Keon plays, the energy he plays with, the heart that he plays with, the defensive intensity. And then on top of that, oh yeah, by the way, he's shooting 58.3% from the field and 40-something% or 50% from 3 over the last 5 games. Like, he's just efficient. He doesn't play outside of who he is. And it's something that I love about guys like him. Like, there are so many players at the college level that are like Keon Ellis, that know their role, that are good teammates, that are leaders behind the scenes, that shoot the 3 and play defense and don't do anything else. And they just get passed over time and time again for the draft. And you draft guys that you think have these ridiculous ceilings, but if not, I'll convert them into something else. And those players never accept that other role. Why not go out and get the actual role player that does the job? And that's what Keon is. He literally, this is exactly who he's always been. You're not asking him to do too much. Sometimes he brings the ball up, which is like a little bit of a stretch for him, but it's something that they worked on last year. They put him in the G League. They said, hey, we need you to run the team. At least bring the ball up and initiate the offense. They're not asking him to go out there and have, 8 assists in a game like he did earlier in like a couple of weeks ago. What they're asking him to do is move around the perimeter on offense. Don't be stagnant. Find spots for guys to hit you. Don't make mistakes. Don't turn the ball over. I think he's averaging 0.4 turnovers per game over his last 5. Like, just go out there and play a really basic, simple game and exert all your energy on the defensive end. Take a little bit of stress off of De'Aaron Fox. Take a little bit of stress off of Domantas Sabonis. So now there's no guard running downhill on him the whole game. And that's what we're seeing. The function of the starting unit with 4 scorers and 1 utility guy is so much like easier to watch than 5 scorers, because 5 scorers, you're always like, well, what's wrong with Harrison? How come he's not shooting? Well, he's not shooting because De'Aaron just shot 32 shots. Like, he's not shooting because he's not getting the ball. You take 1 player out of that starting unit that is not an offensive player, and all of a sudden the flow goes much better. And we saw it against the Bucks when Keegan was out, and all of a sudden it was Herter and Barnes that were scoring. The next day, Keegan came back, but Herter was out. And again, you saw Barnes and Murray combined to shoot like 11 of 20 from 3. And they scored a combined like 42 points. It just like changes the dynamic. And so I don't even really think this is so much like a certain part of this is about Kevin Herter. But a huge part of this is not just Keon, it's the type of player that Keon is. And that's sometimes that's what it takes. You're mixing and matching players all season, trying to find combos. All of a sudden you found something that looks like it will work. And for me, I don't know that Mike can do this. It's a really tough thing to go to a player and say, hey, look, I'm making a change in the starting lineup with 16 games left. I'm going to make a change. But I almost feel like Kevin Herter would have so much more of an opportunity with the second unit. And because all of a sudden it's him and Monk, especially with Trey Lyles out. Like you would have more opportunities to score. And that's what he's comfortable doing. That's what he's kind of built to do. But the only reason we haven't really seen this play out at other positions this season is the Kings don't have someone like Keon that can play the 3 or the 4. And so there's never been this opportunity. Like, God bless Kessler Edwards, but like you're not going to get better by replacing Harrison Barnes in the starting lineup with Kessler Edwards. We've seen that. It's not that Kessler is a horrible player. It's just that he's not dynamic in the same way that Keon is. And so I dig what's happening right now. I think Keon deserves 30-plus minutes a game. Some nights he's going to play 18. Some nights he's going to play 20. But it also, like, it's telling Kevin Herter, hey, look, man, if you don't figure it out, if you don't start playing better, we have to move on. And moving on means we've got to go to Keon more and more and more. We've got to go to Monk more and more. And heaven forbid, we got to go to Chris Duarte. We got to find somebody who's willing to come in here and be ready and hit the shots and play the defense that we want.
And you said something that was perfect there, Ham, that I completely agree with, is Keon Ellis and finding a way to get him more minutes, possibly even starting. To me, I know just you draw the lines and draw the parallels. It's got to be in correlation to somebody, but it's less about Kevin Herter's struggles or what he's not doing, and for me, more about the way Keon is playing. Like, it's just about he's playing really well. You need him on the floor more, and that doesn't mean Kevin went 0 for 3. See, get him out the starting lineup, or when we were having a discussion with Matt last week, like they just start the game off better with. It's not Kevin Herter, it's Keon Ellis who is affecting the change. If that makes any sense. Like Kevin, he's not playing great, but I don't believe he's like killing his team where they just can't recover. I think Keon is helping his team more than Kevin is hurting his team. And I just love the way he's playing right now.
Well, it should be pointed out that Kevin Herter is still shooting like 36.3% from 3. It's not like he's shooting 29% and he's the worst player now over his last 8 games or something. It's pretty horrendous. But it's the dynamics of having a professional basketball team and trying to coach everybody and not leaving anyone behind and trying to put people in the right position to succeed and not making them feel like something's all their fault. Like it's really the most difficult thing about an NBA coaching job. And like we had the question earlier, I guess Bill Simmons or someone had, as part of one of their podcasts, that said that his contract is a negative. Kevin Herter's contract isn't a negative. And like, look, Kevin, well, yeah, but like, here's the point I would make. Like, if you were to bench Harrison Barnes right now, I guarantee you Kevin Herter looks better in the starting lineup next to Keon. It's about having not all the right pieces in place. And there's just something about this team that is off. Last year it worked because it didn't matter. Everyone got fed because they're scoring so many points and there's so many extra shots. This year it's just different. And like, it's almost been like a you take turn type deal. Like, look, I think that this is like the beginning of the window. If it's not Keon Ellis, it's a player like Keon Ellis that will be in the starting lineup next year. That's what the Kings need. I've said it all year. It's the Kentavious Caldwell-Pope type player the guys that don't need the ball all the time, the guys that just do catch and shoot stuff, but play excellent defense and do all the dirty work. That's what this team has been lacking the whole time. It's the connector. It's the one that does all the dirty work, the catalyst type player. You got stars, you got great scorers. You need somebody to tie it all together in a way that, like Doug did as a player. Like, that's what you have to have.
Yeah.
And I'm fearful that's what Kevin recognizes in Keon. That, because even Kevin Herter talked about being in his own head a little bit last week. And I feel like he looks at Keon Ellis and knows that's what Mike wants. Like that's what my coach wants. And knowing that that's not him as a player, and that's fine. But knowing that his coach wants something like what this kid does, I think that's what's got Kevin in this. And maybe it is as simple as he just needs one solid game to kind of bounce out of it and get into a rhythm here a little bit. But the longer he stays in this funk, the more this is going to go on.
Well, that, and like, look, Kevin Herter is a smart basketball player. He's played the game his whole life. He's a very good basketball player. It's not just that that's what your coach wants. There comes a point where you start to see that that's what your team needs, and that you might not be that player. And it's difficult because, again, you could put him and Harrison kind of in the same boat. They're one and the same. Like, you probably can't, going forward next season, have both of those guys in your starting lineup together. Because, again, it's not long, it's not athletic, it's not defensive. Sure, they're great shooters, but now we know what the next iteration of the Kings has to be. They have to have a defensive player there. And again, like, people remember Doug Christie in a bunch of different ways. Just remember that Mike Bibby, Chris Webber, Peja Stojakovic, Vlade Divac, none of those guys were great defenders. None of them. But Doug was able to hold them together in situations because he didn't need the ball. He didn't need to have all of these things. He just did his job. And sometimes that's what it takes to balance out everything. And again, I feel bad for Kevin because it's, I say it all the time, like, Domantas Sabonis, you can't ask him to block shots. He does everything else. Go get a shot blocker and put it next to him. That's on you. That's not on Domantas Sabonis. If you don't want Domantas getting a bunch of fouls, go put somebody at the shooting guard spot that doesn't get beat to the basket and expose Domantas for his faults. You have to, like, it's a team. Yep. And as of right now, it's not even about, like, who you are as a player. It's how you fit with the players around you. And that's what matters.
All right. We're going to shut down. We're going to run it back. Some more Kings coverage ahead. Maybe some rat talk. Maybe some, not really sure